In the world of hot perfumery, creating a true masterpiece isn't about throwing a bunch of expensive flower petals into a vat of alcohol. It is a brutal, unforgiving science. It is molecular chemistry combined with pure psychological manipulation. A true master perfumer, what the industry calls a nose, spends decades training their brain to isolate and identify thousands of individual microscopic scent molecules. We know that scent is the single most powerful trigger for human memory and emotion. A single drop of the right compound can make someone fall instantly in love, or it can make them physically, violently ill. I spent my entire life mastering the invisible art of making people feel beautiful. I just didn't realize the most toxic, volatile element in my laboratory was the woman I was married to. My name is Gideon. I'm 36 years old, and for the past 12 years, I have been a master perfumer. I work as an independent ghost creator for some of the most exclusive luxury fashion houses in Paris and Milan. 5 years ago, I married Valerie. When we first met, Valerie was a mid-level marketing executive trying to break into the luxury beauty space. She was fiercely ambitious, relentlessly charming, and obsessed with high society. We were a perfect symbiosis. I had the genius to create the product, and she had the silver tongue to sell it. For 4 agonizing years, I locked myself in my private laboratory to create my magnum opus. I was attempting to synthesize the scent of the ghost orchid, an incredibly rare, practically extinct flower that blooms in the deep swamps for only one night a year. It required thousands of microscopic chemical adjustments, balancing volatile essential oils with synthetic aldehydes. But finally, I did it. I created a scent so deeply hypnotic, so universally intoxicating, that the few industry insiders who smelled a sample estimated the global patent was worth easily $50 million. I promised Valerie this was our empire. We were going to launch our own independent luxury fragrance house. She would be the CEO, the face of the brand, and we would never have to answer to anyone again. I handed her the keys to my kingdom. But Valerie didn't want to build an empire with me. She looked at my quiet, obsessive life in the laboratory, and she decided she wanted the kingdom, the crown, and the gold, but she wanted a completely different king sitting on the throne next to her.
The shift in our marriage didn't happen with a sudden explosion. It happened like a slow chemical leak. It began when Valerie insisted we needed a strategic corporate partner to handle the global distribution of the Ghost Orchid fragrance. She started taking meetings with a man named Sterling. Sterling was the 45-year-old CEO of a massive, aggressively commercial cosmetics and fashion conglomerate. He was a corporate shark who drove a matte black Ferrari, wore sunglasses indoors, and treated art like it was just another line item on a spreadsheet. In my industry, guys like Sterling are universally despised. They buy up beautiful niche brands and ruin them by cheapening the ingredients to boost their profit margins. Suddenly, Valerie was spending all of her time at Sterling's glass tower headquarters in the city, claiming she was ironing out the distribution logistics. The red flags didn't just quietly appear, they practically burned my eyes. First, the profound, unapologetic disrespect for my craft. Valerie started coming into my lab and demanding I work faster. "Gideon, you're over-obsessing again," she snapped at me one afternoon, waving her hand dismissively at my notebooks. "Sterling says we don't need the pure, organic botanical extracts. He says his factory in China can synthesize a cheaper chemical version that smells 90% the same. Nobody cares about your art, Gideon. They just want the logo on the bottle. Stop being a bottleneck." Second, the intense secrecy regarding the corporate structure. Valerie had incorporated our new business, but when I asked to see the operating agreement, she always had an excuse. "The lawyers are still finalizing the equity split, baby. Just focus on writing out the final chemical formula so we can start production." Third, and most alarming, was her aggressive obsession with my digital security. The exact master chemical formula for the ghost orchid, the precise molecular weights, the temperatures, the compounding steps, was locked on a heavily encrypted offline server in my lab. Suddenly, Valerie was demanding the master password, claiming Sterling's risk assessment team needed to verify the intellectual property before signing the check. I know how to identify a counterfeit. When the top notes of a story smell sweet but the base notes smell like rot, you don't lean in, you put on a mask. So I decided to do some investigating of my own.
When you build a secure digital vault for intellectual property worth $50 million, you don't just put a password on it. You install silent tripwires. I had a hidden script on my lab's server that instantly alerted my phone if anyone attempted an unauthorized data clone. One night at 2 a.m., while Valerie was supposedly sleeping in the guest room because she had a migraine, my phone vibrated in my pocket. Someone was physically in my lab, connected to the server, actively transferring the master directory to an external hard drive. I quietly opened my laptop and tapped into the lab's security camera. It was Valerie. I didn't storm down the stairs. Instead, I remotely accessed her laptop, which she had left open and connected to our home Wi-Fi network. I mirrored her screen to mine. She had an encrypted messaging app open on her desktop, communicating directly with Sterling. I didn't just find an affair. I found a premeditated, multi-million-dollar act of corporate espionage and grand larceny. Sterling wrote, "Is the drive secured? My chemists are standing by at the factory in Shenzhen. Once we have the exact molecular weights, we can mass produce 1 million units in 3 weeks. We launched the brand in Miami under my conglomerate's umbrella." Valerie replied, her words dripping with casual, horrifying cruelty. "I'm downloading the master formula right now. The idiot actually thought we were going to be equal partners. I made sure his name isn't on a single piece of the LLC's incorporation paperwork. He legally owns nothing. As soon as the transfer is complete, I'm serving him the divorce papers. He's just a lab rat, Sterling. He doesn't have the money to sue a billionaire. I can't wait to wake up in your penthouse." Sterling responded, "You're a genius, my love. The lab rat is going to buy us our next yacht." I sat alone in the dark, staring at the glowing monitor, feeling the floor drop out from underneath me. My wife of 5 years was sleeping with a corporate hack. Together, they were actively plotting to steal half a decade of my blood, sweat, and genius, hijacked my $50 million masterpiece using a legal loophole, and leave me utterly destroyed, stripped of my own life's work. They thought I was just a naive, socially awkward chemist. They forgot that a master perfumer knows exactly how to synthesize poison.
3 days after I read those messages, I had a choice. I could lock the server, confront her, and fight a grueling 10-year legal battle against a billionaire's army of corporate lawyers. But if I did that, Sterling would just use his millions to reverse engineer my samples anyway. I didn't want to just stop them. I wanted to see Sterling's entire corporate empire completely and publicly annihilated. I wanted them to confidently spray their stolen masterpiece on the world, only to realize they were holding a grenade. So, I went to work on the master file. I took the breathtaking, perfectly balanced chemical formula of the ghost orchid, and I isolated the base notes. I didn't delete the file. Instead, I created a cloned directory, the exact directory Valerie's espionage attempt was targeting. I took the real, genuine formula, encrypted it with a 256-bit key, and hid it in an offline, air-gapped hard drive in a bank vault. Then, I took the fake, cloned directory, and I altered the chemistry. Perfume relies on stabilizers to prevent the volatile oils from breaking down. I swapped out the primary stabilizer for a highly complex synthetic sulfur compound derivative. It was a stroke of dark genius. In the bottle, and in a climate-controlled laboratory, the perfume would smell absolutely flawless. It would smell like a $50 million masterpiece. But the sulfur derivative I added was highly reactive to 2 specific catalysts, human body heat and the saline in human sweat. Exactly 20 minutes after being sprayed on warm human skin, the chemical bonds would catastrophically collapse. The beautiful floral scent would instantly rapidly oxidize, releasing a massive cloud of hydrogen sulfide and butyric acid. In layman's terms, 20 minutes after you put it on, you would smell exactly like a mixture of raw sewage, rotting meat, and violently decaying garbage. And because it was oil-based, the stench would aggressively bind to your skin and your clothes. It would be impossible to wash off with specialized solvents. I saved the fake formula. I left the master server unlocked. I let the rats steal the cheese. But they didn't know the cheese was laced with strychnine. When Valerie finally downloaded the file and smiled at me across the kitchen island, I knew the countdown had started. "I'm so proud of you, Gideon," she lied beautifully, kissing my cheek. "The formula is secure with the lawyers. We are going to be rich." "Thank you, Valerie," I said, looking her dead in the eyes. "I couldn't have built this without you." The moment she left the house to run errands with Sterling, I went into absolute overdrive. Under United States intellectual property law, stealing a trade secret is a massive crime, but I needed to make sure that when the bomb went off, none of the shrapnel hit me. I drove straight to a specialized intellectual property and corporate liability attorney. Because I had the real air-gapped data, the time-stamped lab notebooks, and the original raw materials, we filed a sealed emergency patent application for the true formula. We officially locked the intellectual property in the name of my private, separate LLC. Furthermore, I formally drafted a legal document dissolving any and all professional affiliation with Valerie's new company, explicitly stating I had not signed off on their final production batch and waived all liability for their manufacturing process. Meanwhile, Sterling didn't wait a single second. The moment Valerie handed him the drive, his massive conglomerate went to work. They bypassed standard human trial safety testing to rush the product to market. They spent $10 million manufacturing 500,000 beautiful crystal bottles of the rigged formula in an overseas factory. They spent another $5 million on aggressive billboard marketing and influencer PR packages. They were so arrogant, so blinded by greed, that their chemists only tested the scent on paper blotters in cold, air-conditioned rooms. They never tested it on actual, sweating human beings. I packed my bags, moved into a quiet hotel across town, and waited for the show to begin.
Sterling and Valerie decided to launch the brand at the absolute worst possible place for my chemical trap, a massive, incredibly humid, outdoor VIP gala in Miami Beach, Florida. I sat in my dark hotel room watching the live stream of the event on Instagram. There were over 1,000 people there, A-list celebrities, top-tier beauty influencers, fashion magazine editors, and wealthy investors. The air was 85 degrees and heavy with tropical humidity. Sterling and Valerie took the main stage. Valerie was wearing a stunning custom silk gown, practically vibrating with triumph. Sterling held a massive diamond-encrusted bottle of the perfume up to the cameras. "Ladies and gentlemen," Sterling announced over the massive speakers, "tonight we redefine luxury. Prepare to experience the Ghost Orchid." Dozens of beautiful models walked through the crowd, carrying sleek atomizer cannons. They began generously spraying the perfume into the air, directly onto the skin and expensive designer clothes of the sweating, cheering VIPs. I watched the clock on my screen. I knew the chemistry. I knew exactly what was happening on a molecular level. For the first 10 minutes, the crowd was mesmerized. The live stream comments were flooded with people saying it smelled like heaven. But at exactly the 18-minute mark, the body heat and the saline sweat of 1,000 dancing people triggered the cascade failure. The chemical bonds collapsed. Through the live stream, I watched the horror unfold in real time. A famous beauty influencer in the front row suddenly stopped dancing. She looked down at her chest, her face contorting into a mask of pure disgust. She gagged, covering her mouth with her hand. Within 30 seconds, the entire venue descended into pure apocalyptic chaos. The hydrogen sulfide reaction hit critical mass. 1,000 people suddenly smelled like they were covered in raw sewage and decaying garbage. The live stream picked up the audio of people literally retching and vomiting onto the pristine white dance floor. Celebrities were screaming, tearing off their expensive ruined designer jackets, trying to escape the invisible cloud of absolute stench. On the stage, Sterling and Valerie, who had also sprayed themselves, were frozen in sheer panic. Sterling was violently gagging into his microphone. Valerie looked down at her silk dress, sobbing as the unbearable smell radiated from her own skin. "What is happening?" Sterling announced over his event coordinators. "Did a sewer line burst?" "It's not the sewer," a furious, highly influential fashion editor screamed back at him, wiping tears of disgust from her eyes. "It's your goddamn perfume. It's burning my eyes. You poisoned us." The crowd stampeded for the exits, pushing over tables and fleeing into the Miami night, leaving Sterling and Valerie standing alone on a stage covered in vomit and ruined dreams. I took a slow, deep sip of my whiskey, smiled at the screen, and closed my laptop.
When you poison 1,000 celebrities and influencers,
The internet does not forgive you. The fallout was an absolute scorched earth masterpiece. By the next morning, #ToxicOrchid was the #1 trending topic worldwide. Influencers posted videos of themselves throwing the $300 bottles into the trash, threatening massive lawsuits because the stench had permanently ruined their clothes and caused skin rashes. Sterling's conglomerate went into total freefall. The FDA and the Consumer Product Safety Commission launched an immediate federal investigation into his manufacturing practices. Because they rushed the product and skipped human trials, the company was hit with tens of millions of dollars in class action lawsuits and federal fines. Sterling's board of directors fired him immediately, and the conglomerate stock price plummeted 40% in a week. He was utterly ruined, facing total bankruptcy. Valerie's life was completely vaporized. To save himself, Sterling threw her to the wolves, publicly blaming her for providing a corrupted, toxic formula. She called me from a hotel room, sobbing so hard she was choking. Gideon, you have to help me. The formula was poisoned. They are suing me for millions. You have to tell them you made a mistake." "It wasn't a mistake, Valerie," I said calmly, leaning back in my chair. "I gave you exactly the formula you stole. You just forgot to do your clinical trials. I read your messages, by the way. I hope you enjoy the yacht with Sterling." While she was crying, my lawyer served her with divorce papers. During the settlement hearing, she tried to claim she was entitled to my real, patented formulas. The judge, who had read the irrefutable proof of her corporate espionage and her attempt to defraud me and leave me penniless, laughed her out of the courtroom. Because she had committed documented fraud against the marital estate, the judge ruled with extreme prejudice. He awarded me 100% of our assets. She walked away with a mountain of legal debt and a reputation so toxic, no one in the beauty industry would ever speak her name again.
It's been 4 years since that night in Miami. I took the real formula, safely and legally protected by my patents, and I approached a legendary, highly respected boutique fragrance house in Paris. I showed them the true chemistry. They were mesmerized. We launched the authentic Ghost Orchid under my own name. It didn't smell like a sewer. It smelled like heaven. It became one of the highest-selling niche fragrances of the decade, and I made a fortune. I didn't keep it all for myself. I opened a state-of-the-art academy to train young, passionate perfumers from underprivileged backgrounds. I am completely debt-free, I control my own art, and I found a partner who loves the quiet peace of the laboratory as much as I do. Last I heard, Valerie's name is completely blacklisted globally. She is currently working at a mall kiosk, spraying cheap, mass-produced celebrity body sprays onto pieces of cardboard for passing teenagers, knowing every single day that she held a $50 million masterpiece and willingly turned it into garbage. Sterling was completely liquidated by the lawsuits, and he is currently dealing with mountains of debt, completely exiled from the luxury world. If there is a lesson to be learned here, it's a simple one. True chemistry cannot be faked, and true loyalty cannot be stolen. If your partner thinks they can use you as a stepping stone, steal your genius, and leave you with nothing while they take the credit, don't panic. Don't fight them for the beaker. Let them take the formula. Smile, hand them the flask, and let them confidently spray their stolen victory in front of the whole world. And right when they think they've conquered the industry, just wait for the heat to rise and watch them choke on their own toxicity. Thanks for listening to my story. If you enjoyed this one, drop a like, hit subscribe, and let me know in the comments, what's the most satisfying time you've ever watched arrogance destroy someone? Stay sharp, trust your craft, and always secure your formulas.